and welcome to Medical Missionary Supplies Soap 101 class. Today we will be talking about how to make soap. The Bible says in Exodus 19:10 and 11, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai." I am anxiously awaiting for our Savior to come, and one of the ways that we do that is we make sure that we have good hygiene, and it's hard to have good hygiene if you don't have soap. I'm going to teach you today the cold process method with soap making. It's very effective, it's very simple, and it is fun to play with. So let's start off today with talking about soap. What is soap? Soap is a chemical reaction between an acid and a base that neutralizes into a salt. How does soap clean? A soap molecule is made up of a chain of atoms, which include carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The molecule is arranged to have a distinct head and tail. The head of the molecule is strongly attracted to water, while the tail of the molecule embeds itself into the dirt and holds it in suspension until it is washed away in the rinse. This process is called a surfactant. Here's a picture. You can see the tails and the heads and how they work. Things you will need: a plastic container. I found a trash can works really well, like a garbage-sized trash can, as long as it's clean. So here's my container. A rubber spatula to stir with. A set of measuring cups to measure ingredients with. Apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar is very important because it neutralizes the sodium hydroxide. If you get it on your skin, it can burn you. So you definitely want to have that handy, and you just splash it on full strength. A quart jar of water. Mine is actually already pre-measured, so it's got 3.5 cups of water. A 48-ounce container of Crisco or any other vegetable shortening. For the basic soap making class, I actually prefer using Crisco. It's easier to teach people with. Once you have made a couple of batches this way and you get familiar with it, you can play with all different oils. We'll be talking about the oils later in a different presentation. 3/4 of a cup of sodium hydroxide, also known as lye. A soap mold. Today we're going to be using a PVC pipe. It's a 3-inch PVC, as you can see, and the edges were cut with a table saw, so they're real flat and sit on the table real well. Saran wrap, scissors, tape, essential oil of your choice. Today we're going to be using lavender. And whatever exfoliant you're going to use. We're using coffee today. Now we're going to discuss the words of the trade. pH. pH is a scale used to measure the hydrogen ion concentration of a substance. Alkali. A substance with a pH of more than 7. Lye, or sodium hydroxide. A combination of 1 oxygen, 1 sodium, and 1 hydrogen atom, used as an alkali in the soap making process. Cold process. The method of using the reaction of food-grade sodium hydroxide to process the soap instead of cooking it. Emulsion. The mixture of 2 incompatible substances by a third component and emulsifier, which helps hold all 3 together in a unit. Pure essential oil. Highly concentrated volatile oil obtained from plants which carry the scent and the botanical properties for that particular plant. They are volatile because they evaporate quickly at room temperature when exposed to air. Fragrance oil, a synthetic imitation of pure essential oil. Saponification, the process of converting a fat or oil and an alkali into soap and glycerin. Superfatting, to superfat a soap is to leave unsaponified oils in the final bars for a less harsh and moisturizing bar. Synergism, when two or more substances work together to create a benefit greater than the sum of each individual benefit. Decoction. 1. An extract obtained by covering roots and bark or herbs with oil, extracting the nutrients of the plant. Or 2. Extracting the color of the plant by creating a highly concentrated water solution to use as a dye. Antibacterial. If a substance is antibacterial, it fights bacteria effectively. Photosensitizers. Substances which make the skin sensitive and react to the sun's energy, especially light. The basic soap recipe. 3.5 cups of water. In the soap making process, the sodium hydroxide, which is the alkali, it's extremely alkaline, and the fats, which are acidic, do not mix naturally. So the water in the soap making process actually helps them to bind together and to cause that chemical reaction. So it's very important to use exactly 3.5 cups of water. 3/4 cups of sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is another form of lye. We use the food grade because we have found it doesn't contain the heavy metals in the lye, like the Red Devil and different kinds of lye that people use in soap making. You can buy it through any restaurant supply store. We have found that it's very beneficial in using it because it makes a nicer soap. 142 ounce tub of vegetable shortening. When I teach these classes, I like using vegetable shortening because different oils require different amounts of lye in order to saponify. Online, once you get good at making soap with the Crisco, feel free to experiment. We'll be talking about different kind of oils that you can use later on. So it's really important until you get the hang of it, until you learn how to use the lye calculator online, to go ahead and just stick with the vegetable shortening. So we have 1 full container of the vegetable shortening. How we're going to do this is you place the lye in the mixing bowl, you carry it outside, add the water and stir until the sodium hydroxide is dissolved. Add the Crisco and stir until it traces. I'll show you this whole process as we go. Add extras, which is the essential oil and the exfoliants, and pour into the molds. Let it sit for 12 hours, cut and set aside. It's very important that you let these bars of soap cure for 2 weeks. If you use them before 2 weeks, and you'll see when you're handling them and you're cutting them into bars, it's still greasy. It doesn't suds when you rinse it off your hands or anything like that. The reason that it doesn't do that is because it is not set up yet. It's not fully saponified. So the longer you let it sit, the harder bar of soap you'll have, and the longer the bar will last. It's also very important to have it sit because the lye is processed enough that you can handle it after 12 hours, but it's still pretty harsh on your skin. Okay, so the process for soap making is to make sure you measure out the fat that is needed. This recipe we're not having to measure, so that's not a problem. Measure out the lye and place it in a mixing bowl. I am using a 1 cup container today, so that's where our lye is. Be careful when handling this substance, it can burn you. Be sure and mix the water with the lye in a well-ventilated area. Lye is active in the soap for about 24 hours after the soap making process. Make sure you measure out the water in a separate container. The lye isn't as likely to burn you until the water is added. So you want to make sure that when you add the water that you stand back and you don't have your face or your hands over the bowl except for the one that you're stirring. It's a good idea to wear gloves if you would like. In a well-ventilated area, preferably outdoors, add the water into the lye while stirring. Be very careful not to splash, because this is really when it burns you, is when it's reacting with the water. When the lye is dissolved, add the fat, stirring briskly. Be careful not to splash. When the lye reacts to the water, you will find that the water gets very, very hot. It's actually almost to the point of boiling. And when it does that, you can go ahead and add your fat. You don't have to worry about the fat being a solid, because it will melt the fat. Stir until the mixture is creamy and tracing, meaning it holds the pattern of stirring for more than 5 seconds. I don't know if any of you guys have made brownies, but the consistency of the brownies when you put them in the pan and how you can kind of spread it and it holds the shape on top, that's what you want in the soap making process. Add your extras, which is anything that you want for exfoliating, and anything, any essential oils that you would like in it. And you can either set it aside and wait 12 hours and then mold it into soap balls. Friends of ours make soap on a rope. The kids think that's a lot of fun, and you just make a ball of soap around a rope that has a loop tied in it. Or you can just pour it in a mold and let it sit and then cut it 12 hours later. So now we're going to talk about our oils. Coconut oil, when used as 20% of the soap makeup, causes a rich moisturizing bar that produces a rich lather. The coconut oil actually lathers in salt water. Olive oil. When soap making, the best form of olive oil is the last pressing. When this olive oil is used, it can be very easy to work with. If it's virgin olive oil, it's very hard to saponify. However, it is doable. It just takes a lot more time. Cold pressed olive oil is known for being very hard to saponify. Peanut oil. Peanut oil should not consist of any more than 10% of the fat contained in a bar of soap. In combination with coconut oil, it makes a longer lasting lather. Vegetable shortening. Vegetable shortening makes a soft bar of soap when it is the only fat used, but when mixed with other oils, it adds bulk, mildness, and a stable lather. Palm kernel oil produces a hard bar of soap that lathers quickly in almost any kind of water. However, when you use palm kernel oil, you don't want to use any more than 15% in your bar. Scents and essential oils. Now we're getting into the fun stuff. Essential oil is the immune system of the plant, which has been distilled out of the plant. It takes quite a bit of plant material to make them, so depending on what you choose to buy, they can get pretty expensive. Each one adds nutrients to the soap. Available essential oils. Available single essential oils include, but are not limited to, balsam fir, basil, cedar wood, cinnamon bark, dill, Douglas fir, golden seal, frankincense, myrrh, and many more. There are quite a variety of mixed essential oils as well, so have fun inventing new combinations or going with the tried and true. Fragrance oil. Fragrance oils are synthetic oils that smell like favorite scents. Although they are more affordable and store for longer periods of time on the shelf, they are more unstable than essential oils when adding to the soap and can end up smelling differently after the soap has cured. It is also lacking the nutrients combined in the essential oils. Exfoliant additives. When you choose things that are exfoliant, you want to make sure that there's something that will saponify. Examples of this are oatmeal. Oatmeal is a very good exfoliant. It's very soft on your skin, but yet it still helps take off all the dead skin. It also is neat to see the patterns that it makes in the soap. Coffee grinds. Coffee grinds is very good to use in soap. Actually, it's one of my favorites. We only use it topically. We don't drink it or anything. But it is also very good for people who have jobs like landscaping or mechanics who have a lot of oil on their hands. It really gets everything off really well. Flower petals. Flower petals are very pretty. I love primrose or even just rose scent with flower petals. Make sure when you use the flower petals that you dry them first. If you don't, the flowers will end up turning completely different. I was teaching a class one time, and I had this probably 10-year-old boy who wanted to come into class, but he didn't have the money. So I went ahead and gave him a bowl anyway, and he got to make his soap. But to pay for the class, he went out and he picked all of these beautiful fresh flowers for us to put in the soap. So he brought it in, and we put it in the soap, and poor guy, the next day we woke up and all of the petals that had been a beautiful purple were yellow, and a red one was orange, and all of these different colors. So he wasn't disappointed. His soap turned out pretty well, but yeah, so make sure they are dry because they won't lose their color that way. Poppy seeds are a fun little mix that you can put in there. You can also, make an almond poppy seed soap. I love the almond poppy seed muffins, so if I had soap that would smell like that, it would be awesome. Salt. Salt is also very good. We do salt glows and different things like that on our skin. You can add that into your soap as well. Can you think of anything that would be fun to put into it? Soap making allows you to be inventive, creative, and individual. You can invest thousands of dollars into the soap making process, buying molds, scales, etc. Most of us don't have money to do that. If you are on a limited budget, check at different restaurants and see if they have oil to give away or sell. They usually sell it in a 5-gallon jugs. So go have fun and enjoy knowing that you are benefiting your family by making custom soap for your family's specific needs. Now I'm going to show you how to make the soap. We'll be showing you step by step. And so I have my cup of lye that's actually only got 3/4 of a cup in it. You want to be pretty specific when you measure the lye. You don't want to get a whole lot extra, otherwise the lye won't be used up and it'll be toxic on your skin when you try to go and use it 2 weeks later. So lye is in my bucket right now, and I'm just scraping out the extras. Okay, now we're going to add the water. You want to make sure when you add the water that you stand back, because you're going to have this reaction. So you want to make sure you stand back because you're going to have a reaction and you'll see it'll actually start to smoke. It's getting really hot and there's steam coming off. I don't know if you can see that. You also want to make sure that you don't breathe right over your bowl. So now that the lye is all mixed up, there are no more crystals floating in the lye. I'm going to add my fat. And I went ahead and added a little bit of coconut oil to enhance the sudsing. And you want to try to get this in as quickly as you can without splashing. Sometimes it's easier to put it on a plate first. Just get it all in there. This is a really good project for your kids, but you want to make sure that you supervise them well when you're working with the lye. Once you're adding the extra ingredients and the fun stuff, the kids can go ahead and handle it a little bit if they wear gloves. it's at that point it won't burn you too badly. Come on. You don't have to be completely immaculate cleaning out the container, but it is nice just to make sure that you get it mostly clean. And depending on the different fats you use, the oil and the color of the container, the soap will actually come out different colors. There's a big controversy as to whether you should use stainless or whether you should use plastic. Some people only use wood spatulas. I believe it's best if you use plastic. The problem is that lye tends to eat through stainless, but eventually too it will eat through plastic. So it's kind of a toss-up as to what you're going to do. As far as the wood goes, you definitely don't want to use the wood stirring spoons and different things, because if you do that, you'll end up having wood chunks in your soap, and that's not very cleansing on the skin. So I'm just kind of mushing the Crisco up against the side of the container to try to get it to mix in better. Again, you want to make sure that you're not splashing. I'm going to go ahead and switch hands because I do have a little bit of the lye vapors on my other finger, and it's starting to kind of burn a little bit. Sometimes this wire whisk works really well if it gets real chunky. You just want to make sure that it's a stainless wire whisk. As far as soap making things for my classes and things, I found that the best place to go is the dollar store to get supplies. I bought this big tub at the dollar store. Especially if you're going to be making a lot of soap, then you're going to be going through it quite a bit, and you're going to end up needing several containers instead of just one. You want to make sure that you mix fairly quickly, because you want to move that water around so that it helps everything get in the soap and start making the soap reaction. Process of getting this all out and breaking it down sometimes takes a little while, so don't be surprised if you're sitting here stirring for a half hour, and it's also a very, very good way to build muscle in your arms. I resorted to my wire whisk because it's not wanting to smooth out. Sometimes soap is very much like making bread. I don't know how many of you make bread, but you can do the same recipe 2 different days and they both turn out different. Soap is the same way. Sometimes it smooths out real easy, other times it is kind of hard. So now you can see it's smoothing out pretty good. We're getting most of the fat in there. And it's starting to trace, which is what we want. The cooler it gets, the faster it traces. So today is pretty hot outside. But the bowl's shallow enough that it's tracing pretty quickly. Okay, so that is traced to the point, I don't know if you guys can see it on the camera, but that's traced to the point where we're going to add our extras. You want to make sure that you scrape down the sides real well, get them mixed in. Just keep working it. Okay, so now we're going to fold in our extras. And I'm going to do probably about 1/2 cup to 3/4 cups of coffee, maybe a little bit more. You can always add more once you get it mixed. See what you think. I am not a coffee person, but this, I have to tell you, is one of my favorite exfoliants. I made some for my grandpa, and he already decided he wanted more, so it's pretty popular. You can add some chocolate, powdered chocolate in here to give it a brown color and create a mocha soap, or mocha soap that you can sell at a coffee shop, maybe if you have a little local coffee shop that people visit often. Works well for that. And since that's what I'm going to be doing with this, I'm probably going to add just a pinch more. It actually smells quite a bit like coffee, so I'm not sure I'm going to use the vanilla. If you want it really flavored like coffee, you can go ahead and brew a cup of coffee in the water that you're going to use for the lye. That'll give it a dark color with a smell, coffee smell in it. So there's a lot of different things you can do. You can add chocolate, you can add cinnamon, you can do natural dyes that way. So, I think I might just add some. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and add some lavender. And different essential oils require different amounts. This is just a cheap one I got off eBay, so it's not very strong. Lavender is very good for your skin. You'll find if you have skin conditions, eczema, different things like that, acne, you'll find that it works really well to make your own soap because it's very mild on your skin, a lot more mild than the different, a little bit more, than the different soaps that are on the market. Actually, if you notice, they don't say soap on them. They call them body bars or beauty bars or different things like that because it's not soap. It's different toxic materials that they needed to figure out what they were going to do with it, and they found out, oh, let's make soap, and they have to put this additive in it because of this soap, and they have to, or because they want this effect, and they want it to smell like this, so they have to put that in it, and all of those different things play into the skin conditions. If you want an antibacterial bar of soap, you can put tea tree oil in it, or eucalyptus. They're actually the same thing, they just come from different places. You want to kind of over scent it a little bit from what you think it needs, because as time goes on, it'll tend to, the smell will tend to decrease a little bit as it cures. That looks really good. So as you can see, the coffee kind of dyed it a little bit. So it's a brown bar of soap instead of the white that we were going to have. splash. When smelling the scent, it's easier if you lift it up on the spatula and then smell it. Okay. My husband's saying that he can smell it behind the camera. So I'd say we got enough in there. So now, don't let your spatula fall in. You don't want to have to go digging for it. Now we're going to prepare our mold. And you want to make sure you have smooth edges on your mold. You take the saran wrap. My husband said this was invented by the devil. He does not like messing with it, and any time that I need help, he kind of is like, oh, you have to mess with saran wrap? Okay, bye. I usually can get him to do it. I just have to twist his arm. So you place the saran wrap over your mold. In this case, it's a white PVC pipe. And you take your tape. Scotch tape works fine. You don't have to use this heavy packing tape. This is all we have right now. So that's what I will be using. Take that off. Okay. And then just wrap that around that. And this is just making sure that it doesn't come out the bottom. Because it is, if you can, I don't know if you can see the texture, but it's very much like a yogurt texture. Is probably the best way that I can explain it. And this is going to be very interesting pouring this. So you give it a good mix again. Now we have just super fatted this because the essential oil that we used in this is going to stay an essential oil because all of the lye has been used up at this point as far as what it's going to react to. So we retain all of those wonderful nutrients from the essential oil. Okay, now let's see if I can do this without making a mess everywhere. Oh no. Okay. Well, this is the first time we've used 3-inch molds. We usually use 4-inch molds. And we decided we liked the 3-inch better because they're a lot easier to handle in the shower. The 4-inch molds or 4-inch PVC bars of soap are really nice because they last, they'll last the three of us, my husband, son, and I, for probably a good 2 or 3 months, but unfortunately this batch is a little bit too big for all of them, so we are going to have to get another mold. So that mold's full, and we're going to do this process again. What would be really nice is to have a cap that would go over the end of these. That would make it a lot easier. So this is the soap that I made a year for one family, or the soap that I made right now for one family would probably last up to 1.5 years. It's It doesn't take a whole lot. I have a gal who orders it from me a year at a time. So as you can see, it doesn't take much time to make. You want to make sure you get as much of your soap out of the container as you can, because you don't want to waste anything. One thing too, when you're doing this, as the soap dries, it's going to shrink. And when it shrinks, you're going to find that it's a lot easier to get out of the mold. Usually what we do, you don't have to, but what we do is we go ahead and we freeze the molds as soon as we're done making the soap. There's a little bit of a controversy about that, because some people say that you need to wrap the soap up in a warm in blankets and things to keep it warm, because you want that chemical reaction to continue. I haven't found that my soap is any inferior by not letting that reaction continue. So we go ahead and, when they're movable, they're not quite right now. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Usually I take one of my Crisco jar lids, I save those and I put those under the bottom of it, so that when I move it, I just pick that up, and that helps keep pressure on it so it doesn't scoot out like that. But unfortunately I forgot that this time, so that's okay. We're just going to have to let that one set up for a while. So, there you have it. In 24 hours, these will be, or in 12 hours, I'm sorry, these will be ready to cut, and that will make our soap. Thank you so much, and feel free to join us for any of our other classes. God bless.